All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to dig into how the Quran, especially in Surahs Al-Ma'idah and An-Nisa, really lays out the blueprint for a community. It's a fascinating look at how a foundational text creates an identity, not just through belief, but through contracts, laws, and a very specific way of looking at history. Let's see how it all fits together.
So let's start with a really big question, right? One that the text itself seems to be answering. What actually defines a community? I mean, beyond just living in the same place or speaking the same language, what are the real building blocks?
And the answer it gives is powerful, and it's actually pretty simple. A community is held together by two major things: the sacred promises it makes, its covenants, and the rules it lives by, its laws. So let's break down exactly what that means.
Okay, so first up, we're looking at the very bedrock of it all, the covenant. This is all about those foundational agreements and the daily practices that really bring them to life. This is what shapes a community's identity from the ground up.
It all kicks off with this incredibly direct command from Surah Al-Ma'idah: honor your bonds. This isn't just, a friendly suggestion. It's presented as the number one instruction, the central pillar that everything else is built on. It's all about integrity, about commitment.
So you might be asking, what exactly is a covenant in this sense? Well, think of it like a sacred pact. It's an agreement between God and the community that spells out responsibilities on both sides. It's more than a rule book. It's a whole framework for living a just and righteous life. And what's so interesting here is how this shows that the covenant isn't just some abstract idea. No, it translates directly into action. Honoring the pact means you live justly, which the text says is nearer to God-fearing. It means following specific laws, and even things like maintaining physical purity by washing before prayer. It's about living out that pact every single day.
And wow, do these laws get specific. They create these really clear boundaries for the community. Just take these dietary rules from Surah Al-Ma'idah. The text is explicit, forbidding things like carrion, blood, and pork. And this isn't just about what's for dinner. It's about establishing a unique practice that defines and unifies the group.
But, these rules aren't just pulled out of thin air. The Quran also looks to the past. It uses the history of earlier communities, who it calls the people of the book, as a source for some really powerful lessons, and maybe a few cautionary tales.
And just so we're all on the same page, when the text says people of the book, it's a very specific term. It's talking about communities who are believed to have gotten divine scriptures before, mainly Jews and Christians. And knowing that is really key to understanding the examples that are coming up.
Okay, this slide is a perfect example of how the text uses history. On the left, you see the covenant offered to the children of Israel, and it's just full of promise. I am with you, as long as you have faith and do good things. But then on the right, the text describes how that very same covenant was broken by rejecting signs and even killing prophets. It's this really stark contrast between the promise and the failure.
And the consequences of breaking that pact, well, as described here, they're severe. The text talks about being cast away from mercy, about hearts becoming hardened. This serves as a really powerful warning about how important it is to keep your own covenant with God. So all this looking back at history brings us to one of the most pivotal stories discussed in these chapters, the story of Jesus. And the Quran gives a very specific perspective here, really aiming to clear up what it sees as some historical and theological mix-ups.
The narrative kicks off by mentioning this boastful claim that it attributes to some people, the claim that they were the ones who killed the Messiah Jesus. This really sets the stage for a direct counterargument. And then you get the counter-narrative. The Quran is crystal clear here. It states that Jesus was neither killed nor crucified. Instead, it says the situation was made to look that way, or as the text says, made dubious to them. It left everyone involved confused and full of doubt.
So what's the bottom line here? The text concludes that instead of being killed, Jesus was actually raised to God. This statement is presented as the final, definitive truth of what happened, and it's all attributed to God's power and wisdom.
And clearing up this story about Jesus isn't just about history. It actually serves a much bigger purpose, to tackle what the text views as some core theological mistakes. The focus kind of shifts from what happened back then to what does it all mean for how we understand God.
So the text speaks directly to the people of the book again, and it gives a warning against going to what it calls extremes in religion. It's a call for moderation, really, a call to get back to what's described as the simple, straightforward truth about God. And it doesn't stop with a general warning. It gets super specific. It directly challenges the idea of a trinity, telling believers to let go of that concept and instead affirm a very strict monotheism. Allah is indeed just one God.
This is such a great way to see the two views side by side. The Quran acknowledges that some people believe Jesus is God, but then it lays out its own position very clearly, that Jesus, son of Mary, was not God, but was only a messenger of Allah. That distinction is absolutely central to its theological message.
Okay, so this brings everything together into our final big theme. After clearing up its position on past events and theologies, the Quran presents its own message not as something totally brand new, but as the final piece of one single, continuous truth, delivered by many messengers all through history.
And this idea that revelation is this one long, continuous thing. It's stated right here, plain as day. The revelation given to the Prophet Muhammad is tied directly to the revelations given to Noah and the whole line of prophets who came after him. It's all about continuity, not a clean break from the past.
I mean, just look at this list. It's pulled right from the text. You've got Noah, Abraham, Jacob, David, and yes, Jesus, all within the same prophetic family tree. The text presents them not as founders of totally separate religions, but as links in one single chain of divine guidance.
So what was the job description for all these different messengers? Well, according to the text, their core purpose was always the same: to be bearers of glad tidings for people on the right path, and warners for those who might be going astray. A simple, unified mission.
And all this leaves us with something to really chew on, doesn't it? We've just seen how this text uses history, reinterpreting events, reframing stories, all to build its laws and its theology. It makes you ask the question, how does any foundational text's view of the past end up shaping its identity and its ultimate vision for the future?